the Android framework introduced a new framework for animation which is more robust and general. And this one is called as property animation. In property animation, you basically can animate anything that you want related to your application. Obviously, you are trying to make use of this manipulation, this change in some property, and apply it to some kind of an object in order to show it on the screen and so on. But the object property can be manipulated even without being shown on the screen if required. Now, within the properties, you can control things like the duration for which this change in the property is affected, and time interpolation. Now, normally, if you give a duration, you would assume that things will go linearly over this duration. It doesn't have to be. You can actually make the change in the property take a nonlinear effect if required. So that sometimes gives you very interesting ways of doing different kinds of behaviors within the property. You can also control the repeat count and behavior, which is straightforward to understand. You can design a group of animations to work together as a set. So you can group animations into logical sets that play together, or you can even ask them to play sequentially, one after another after a specified delays for them, and so on. And also frame refresh delay, refreshing the screen, and so on. All these properties can be controlled by using property animation. So as I said, the property can be changed either linearly or non-linearly. So for example, if you consider a property x, for example, and you want to change the value of the property x from 0 to 40 over a 40 millisecond period, you can do this in a linear fashion like this. The property is changed. Say, for example, you are increasing the size of a view from a small size to a large size. You can say that over this duration, this change will be linearly happening. So that is a very straightforward thing to do, but sometimes you may want something to quickly change and then reduce. So some kind of a non-linear effect. Say, for example, you are bouncing a ball off the floor and you want to be able to reflect that happening on the screen. When you bounce a ball off the floor, obviously as the ball falls, it will fall rapidly, increasing its speed, hit the ground, and then it will rise up, right? And as the ball rises up, it will slow down, and then again fall down, and then again rise up, and so on. So this would be controlled by equations of gravity, laws of motion. You can easily simulate that by using a nonlinear effect. You can specify how this property changes over time. So as you see, the same property being changed non-linearly. So for the first duration of 10 milliseconds, it changes from 0 to 6, but from 6 to 20, there is a big jump here. And then from here, decreasing level of increase as time progresses. So this kind of thing could easily simulate behaviors that you might notice more to be more practical, more physical in real life. If there is a continuous linear motion, some things can be easily represented, but usually in real life, things don't happen in a linear manner. They happen in a non-linear manner, like, as I said, the ball bouncing off the floor, for example. That kind of representation can be more easily done using non-linear animation. Okay. Two different ways of doing things. Now, what I will do is I will show the same example that we did last time with view animation, but I have modified that example to implement similar behavior, but using property animation. And this will work only for Android 3.0 and above. And so you could see the same behavior. Last time, what kind of behaviors did we see? We saw the fading in of text onto the screen. We saw the logos being rotated, and so on. So some of those features can easily be implemented even using using property animations. So you would notice when you look at the code for the two examples in the lab next week, you will see the same thing being implemented in two different ways, or close to same thing. I couldn't get exactly to be the same thing. Some of the things I could make it happen very similarly. Some things slightly different, but still the overall behavior is very much similar to what we saw last time. Let me show you the source code from last time where we did implement the animation in this file called welcome.java. This was for the welcome screen that I created the different kinds of animations. So remember that I use this method in order to rotate the top and bottom pictures on the screen, and then I used this one to create the fading in effect of the text onto the screen. So these two I have implemented. I implement pretty much the same thing, but in a slightly different way using property animation. So in property animation, what we do is, that's why I label this as course info for 5217, and then this is 7 for property animation. We'll look at the same welcome.java file in this particular case, and notice the difference. Okay. I started with application. Let me start this particular application. Getting back to this example from last time. Oh, this one I will show you in a short while. That's a different example which I used to show (2D) graphics. So this is similar, not exactly the same, because I couldn't get this to rotate with property animation correctly. I couldn't figure it out completely yet, but I was able to create something that is pretty much similar to what happens in the last example. So you see this text fading in, and then you will see the logos turning before they're displayed on the screen. Now, these two things I implement using property animation. And property animation is also, again, depending on what you're trying to do, property animation is fairly straightforward. You just need to understand the corresponding method of doing things. So in this case, we first find the two objects that we are trying to animate, and then I apply the animation. I declare the animation, the rotation animation, in this file called rotate. I'll show you that in a minute. And I apply the same thing to these two images, the top and bottom image, and then I start there. For the fading in of the text, I don't need to create it in XML. Instead, I directly declare what I want to simulate using code here. So what I do here is, for the fading in of the text on the splash screen, I basically bringing this up here. I basically find the reference to the linear layout on the screen, which refers to the text that is being displayed on the screen. And then after that, I declare this object animator, which basically is doing on this inner layout, it is changing the alpha property, alpha, which is the transparency property of that particular element. And this is done from 0 to 1. That is from completely transparent to completely opaque, and the duration of this animation I can set by, once I declare the animation like this is the object animator object here, and then I apply this one. This is a method in the object animator. I set the duration to 5,000 milliseconds, and then start the animation at the same time. So this is done for 5,000. This one, I can do property animation. Also, part of it, I can declare it in terms of a XML file. So let me show you the corresponding XML file for this one. Now, if you create property animations and use XML file for declaring it, then you need to inflate the XML file thereafter, and these XML files have to be stored in this directory. For property animation to be used, it has to be stored in this directory called as animator, res/animator. And in here, I have this particular XML file, which basically declares what all I am doing to that object. Now this is a group of animations, so animator set as they call it. So I am applying 3 different property animations together at the same time on the same object. So that's why I declare it as a set, as you see here. What are the 3 properties that I am changing? Actually, 4 properties. I have rotation. Actually, I should change this to rotation. X. Just change it to rotation and save it. And so this is rotation going from 0 to 360 degrees and pivoting from these 2 points, 2,500. And when I declare something like this, I have to specify the type of the value that I am, of the property that I'm changing. So here I'm saying that this value is a floating point type, so 0 to 360 degrees. And this again, when you read the documentation for property animation, it will become more clearer from there why you need to declare them as such. This is the alpha, the transparency going from 0 to 1 over a duration of 2,500, and also float type, scale X and scale Y. Scale X refers to scaling the image along the X direction from 0.1 to 1.0, that is its full size, and with the duration, and similarly for scale Y. So I apply this particular, this set. So as you see, these 3 animations, rotation, alpha, scale 4, scale X and scale Y, all are declared as a animator set by enclosing this inside set and /set here. So that essentially specifies all these animations have to be applied together on the same object. So this is what I declare using the rotate.xml.
Professor,
yeah.
earlier you had a declaration Android ordering in the first set. What does that ordering do?
Where?
There.
Okay. This one is specifying that I am applying it sequentially, but for this one I don't really need this in reality. I don't really need the top one. I only need the bottom one.
I mean, sequentially, do you mean that actually execute so many steps sequentially?
Sorry?
I mean the ordering equal to sequentially.
No. If I specify sequentially, that means that the 3 properties have to be applied one after another in sequence.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, there is an inner set. Inside the outer set, there is an inner set. That inner set summed up together is applied. So there is only one group that is going to be applied in one shot. Actually, I realize that I don't need this outer set. In fact, I could simply declare this as not sequential. I think there are, if you don't know what the choices are, you can simply delete this and then say equal to, and then Android will suggest together. Okay? Let me remove this this set. Okay, we can do these changes and then see what happens, right? What's the worst that can happen? It won't work, and then I can always go back and correct it. Yeah.
No, but I mean, even though you change it from sequential to together, because they are still in the same set.
Yeah.
You should define like several sets maybe, and you use it together.
You mean you define several sets and then
Yeah.
why would you want to define several?
I mean, I think maybe now you change the sequential to together.
Yes.
I just want to test the meaning or maybe the function.
Yes.
Right. But since you mentioned just now, as long as several object animator is in the same set, they will just execute together. And now they are in the same set.
Yeah, these are all in the same set, so they will be applied together
Yeah. So you
at the
don't,
same time.
so you don't need to declare them together, and they will. Just,
Yeah, I don't actually. I think the default is together.
Yeah.
So let me put it there and see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll remove it and we'll see what happens. If it doesn't work, then I put it back again. See, that's the thing. That's the fun of doing a thing. You try different cases, and if it works, you're happy. If it doesn't work, then you go back and change. Okay, let's apply this to the case and then see how it performs. Okay, it should come up in a thing. Okay, one more time. Let's deploy this. Oh, too fast. Let's do it one more time. Okay, now it is doing it right. Now, for some reason on that particular night, at midnight, I lost my patience and then gave up on the client. But today it seems to be working correctly. This is what I intended to do. Okay? So, the rotation and the fading in effect, both are being created correctly in this particular case. So, as you suggested, let me remove this and see what happens. We'll also do sequentially and see what happens. Why not? Nobody is stopping us from trying. Too fast. Okay, no effect. Let's try sequentially. It might create an even more interesting effect. There you go. See, that is not really what we intended. It is doing the rotation, it is doing the scaling in one after another, and that is not really that great to look at. So obviously, sequentially doesn't seem to be working right. So we will change it back to together, and that seems to be a better choice for us. Okay? Now, how am I making use of it? I'm making use of it inside here by inflating the XML file. So whenever you have XML resources declared, you need to inflate them So this is how you do the animator. This is animator inflator. This code is different from the other welcome.java code that you have seen for the other example, but both are achieving exactly the same thing. Only thing is this will work only for Android 3.0 and above. If you try to apply this to lower than 3.0, it won't work. So that's something to remember. I think property animation is a bit more easier to work with. There are some things that if you do the view animation, it won't work correctly. Things like, for example, you may want to displace buttons on the screen in order to create some interesting effect. If you do that, apparently it doesn't work correctly with view animation. With property animation, that problem has been corrected. So that is a little bit of animation for you. I'm sure many of you may want to make use of some of these features when you create the welcome or the splash screens or welcome pages for your apps. So this is something, you can cut and paste this code if you want. Feel free to take this code. Okay? If it provides you with what you want to do, that's a good place to learn how to do it. Okay? So, coming back to property animation. Sorry. The text fade in example now is done by using this code. A slightly different code. So what I do here is I declare an object, and this thing is equivalent to one of those pieces that I declared in the XML file. Right? You can declare the same thing in XML. You can do the same thing in code also. Whichever is more convenient for you, that's the one that you should be using here. And so this one, I declared it as an object animator. And then I set the property of the duration to 5,000, and then start animation. Straightforward using those. Okay?